rent to own. It might be the right option for you, or it might not be. In this video, we're gonna go over the different types of rent to own options in these contracts because not all are created equal. We're also gonna go over what you can negotiate within these contracts because simple details may leave you in court, believe it or not. And lastly, at the end of this video, we're gonna go over who is this good for? Is it a right fit for you, or should you go the more traditional route and actually get a pre-approval on a mortgage to purchase the property instead? My name is George Rodriguez. I'm a realtor here in the state of Washington with eXp Realty, and welcome to my channel where we talk all things real estate to help buyers and sellers to ensure they get the correct result on their transaction. If you find any value in this information that I put out, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It does help out the channel. I do feel like a beggar when I ask, so please do it for your boy.
This motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss.
Before we get started, we have to actually understand what exactly rent to own actually means. And luckily for you, it's exactly as it sounds. You're going to rent for X amount of time with X amount of payments, and with the time schedule that you decided with the seller, you're going to have the option to purchase later in the future. But not all options within rent to own are created equal, and you need to pay really close attention. If you try to catch a case, this may be the right option for you.
I have no further witnesses, Your Honor.
So the first option we have is the lease option. This actually is the way exactly it sounds. It is the option to purchase the property in the future. So how it's going to work with your payments, they're going to be pre-designated in the contract. So each of these payments, they're either going to go to the purchase price of the property, in an X amount of given time, if it's gonna be 2 to 5 years later, or if you decide to not purchase the property during this trial period, all these payments are just poof, the same way it is if you rent. So, you're kind of in the same kind of rabbit hole, The lease purchase is a lot more binding, meaning you have to actually purchase this home after your time is completed of this contract. So if you were actually trying to rent to own a property and you get into a lease purchase, you better have been able to actually qualify for this property, because let's say that you're not going to be able to do a conventional loan and this property is not approved for FHA guidelines. So your opportunity of actually purchasing this property may not even be able to occur.
But I want it now!
So you still have to shop within your price range and be sure that you're still speaking to a lender of your plan to make sure it's actually going to be an option for you. If you can't finance this home and you're not able to purchase it at the end of the contract, you could find yourself in court with this case because you weren't able to purchase the home.
Oh, hell no!
Okay. You may lose all of the money that you put towards this contract and actually purchasing the home, and it can all go poof into flames. So to wrap it up, essentially, this keeps everyone more honest and actually binding on this contract. So this is actually, in my personal opinion, the way you want to go because it provides more security for yourself and the seller. So with both of these options, you are going to have a down payment associated with these contracts. It's going to be your purchase option fee, and more than likely, this is not going to be a refundable option for you in the future if you decide to back out of either of these contracts. So the misconception that you may not have a down payment associated to get into a rent-to-own property is far-fetched. That money's coming out regardless. So typically speaking, if you're going to be going with a rent-to-own option, it's because you're having issues actually getting pre-approved today. So if you're having those issues, you need to understand that those issues need to be cleared up when this contract is telling you to actually purchase the home. So this is not a way to get into a home and you're like, ooh, I don't need a pre-approval. Psych, you need a pre-approval and this has to happen, okay? So understand, if you're going to get into a rent-to-own situation, you need to be able to purchase the home when it's time. So I still recommend speaking to a mortgage officer, because if it does come into a time where in these 2 years you decide to quit your job and go to a different one, and now your time and job is now messed up, you're going to be in a situation where you're not able to actually act on your intuition of purchasing that home when you actually sign to do that. Negotiations. Did you know that you can actually negotiate your rent-to-own contract? When it does come to this, you're going to decide, are you paying today's price or tomorrow's price? Are you willing to bet that, are you going to pay a cheaper price today than you're going to pay tomorrow? That's something that you're going to have to negotiate with the prospective seller on this property when you're doing your rent-to-own contract. So you need to be very cognizant and actually aware of what's going to be coming in the future of what you think. So if you're a gambler, this is actually going to be a very exciting time for you. You can also negotiate the interest rate on your payments. Reason being, this is actually going to help you decide between you and the seller, what is the current market estimate for you to pay, because it's advantageous for the seller to obviously have you pay a high interest rate, but it's better for you if you're paying a lower one. Because on your monthly payments, you need to be sure that how much you're actually paying a month is actually going to the principal of the property when you purchase, because you'd be pretty upset if you're paying a high interest rate and you're not understanding of what the market conditions actually is, and you find out and you've done absolutely nothing to the purchase price. So this is very important to be very well versed when you're going into the negotiations, to know what the market is currently situated in. So it's very important to actually understand what the current marketplace setting is when it comes to your mortgage interest rates, because you don't want to get juiced, okay?
You tripping?
And one of the most important things that not a lot of people think about is you need to negotiate who is going to be taking care of the expenses of the house. Like, what happens if the roof falls out and now the guy that gave you the contract's like, dude, you need to pay for that. And you're like, excuse me, bro, I haven't even bought this thing yet. So you may be on the hook for expenses on the property when you had just the intention of doing a rent to own. You just wanted to get in the house. And here you are paying for a roof. Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
It's my credo. No regrets.
So you need to understand that you need to negotiate who is actually going to be taking care of the home on the contract. In most cases, if you're going to be doing a lease purchase and you have your name on the property, if it was me, I'm being like, you're taking care of that, buddy. Be sure and be understanding that these key areas on your negotiation tactics are going to need to be taken care of, okay? Because you may be paying for a roof at the end. So let's talk about how your payments are actually going to work. How do you decide how much you're going to pay on this rent to own option? A quick and easy method that a lot of people do, and what I've personally done for my rentals, is that I like to use the Zillow rent estimate to give me an idea of how much I should be paying for this property. So you need to be understanding that you need to do your market research to see if this 3-bed, 2-bath home is renting out for $2,000 a month, then you should probably have your rent payment on this contract probably around $2,000 a month. But you need to understand that most of these payments are probably going to be a little bit higher because a portion of this is going to your purchase contract as your down payment. So let's explain that a little bit further. For example, let's say you're going to purchase this property at $300,000, but you can't decide what your payment's going to be. You can use the 1% rule, which is basically taking the 1% of that purchase price. So let's say $300,000, your rent at 1% is going to be $3,000. Now that you have a $3,000 payment, you're gonna be thinking, man, I'm paying more for a rental than I was before. Make sure you're thinking that a portion of this money is going to be going to your down payment. So let's say you have a $300,000 purchase price, you're paying $3,000 in rent, and you negotiated 20% of this to go to your down payment. So that's basically every month you're going to be taking around $600 to go to the principal of that purchase. So fast forward, 2 years goes by, you're looking beautiful, and now you're ready to purchase the home. That $600 every month in principal payment has now turned into $14,400 for your down payment. So your negotiation really matters. So what if you're able to negotiate 50% of that $3,000 to go to the down payment of the property? Well, $1,500 a month is going to turn into, what's this? It's going to turn into $36,000 on your down payment. That is beautiful. Your negotiation is paramount to your deal because you may be getting the raw end of this contract if you don't negotiate this properly. So make sure you get a real estate attorney, but we're going to get into that.
Now, is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for them.
So what actually happens when you finish this contract? Well, we have two scenarios on what a lease option and a lease purchase, and we're going to explain both for you so you actually have both scenarios ahead of time. You're welcome. So let's say you went with a safer option, you decide to go with a lease purchase. Well, you don't have to come up with a down payment. Reason being is because since you're on the deed of the title and you're actually considered a homeowner, at this point in time, it's going to be a refinance at the end of your contract rather than a purchase. All this money that you're paying on a monthly basis, all of this is going to go to your equity rather than your down payment. And to actually spruce it all up, this may be better and more advantageous for you because you might get a lower interest rate on this property on a refinance because you actually have equity in the home. So this could put you in a better position in the future. So now let's speak about the lease option. You're going to need a new purchase agreement because typically lenders may need a purchase agreement to go through on a purchase of the property. I feel like I'm saying purchase too many times. You're going to need to bring that contract to that seller and hopefully they don't decide to try and renegotiate terms with you because their property just went up extreme in equity, which would be kind of messed up because they do have a prior contract. So the reason being you might need a real estate attorney to look some of this over and to protect yourself because you need to protect yourself. Some people be shiesty, all right? So now that you're going into the purchase of this property on your lease option, you're going to need a down payment. Typically speaking, you're going to need 3 to 5% down. Of course, that changes if you're going to be a VA, you don't need anything down. FHA, you need 3.5% down. And if you're going conventional, you're going to need 3 to 5%. Sorry I'm going through all these numbers so fast, but if you watch my first time home buyer video on my channel, it's going to explain all of the minimum down payments. So let's just say on your $300,000 property that you negotiated, your down payment needed is going to be 5%, and that's $15,000 down, and your closing costs are going to be an estimated $7,500. So total, you're going to need $22,500. So your monthly payment that you were doing on your lease option contract is going to decide how much of that monthly payment is going to be added for your purchase at the end of the contract. So it's very important to understand that what you negotiate extremely matters, because you could be on the hook for thousands of dollars on the back end that you may not have been expecting now that it's actually time to purchase that property you signed for. Well, we have to ask this question: is this right for you? If you're a buyer and you don't have the necessary funds to cover the big down payment as well as the closing costs in the transaction, or maybe you just don't have the 580 minimum credit score to be approved for these loan programs, or let's just say maybe you want a better credit score so you have a better interest rate when you go into these loan programs, qualify for the better rate. Or we can go further into the rabbit hole, and let's say you're a business owner without 2 years of tax returns, or maybe you're an internet creator, or maybe you have an OnlyFans account. You don't have 2 years of tax returns to actually prove verifiable income.
Look at that, zoom in, $8. Just because you have money doesn't mean you need to spend it.
So rent to own can be an option for you if you're trying to avoid those kind of things to get you into a property sooner rather than later. So now what if you're a seller? Does this make more sense for you to actually do a rent to own situation rather than sell currently in this marketplace? That's for you to decide, but if you do the rent to own option, you're going to have that monthly income that's going to be coming in every month due to the rent scenario, with an option later in the future to actually sell your property to that same individual that you decided to write the contract with. And if they decide to actually go through with the deal at the end, then of course now you have a sale while you generate passive income for a few years before going into selling the property. So it is currently on personal preference if this does work for you or not. Both sides do come with risk and both sides do come with cons, and that's for a decision for yourself to make. I recommend you speak to a real estate attorney rather than a real estate agent. Yes, I can do this and help you out as well, but when it comes to contracts that are not currently written by attorneys, I would go with the source that's able to go through it and make sure there's nothing malicious or anything against you into a detriment for you in the future. Because in the end, you need to protect yourself, because you're now doing this deal with an individual and you're not doing it with an entity that's going to protect you. So again, that can be your quickest way to end up in court. So please be protected. This is gonna wrap up the entirety of the rent to own video. And if you found any of this information at all helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It does help out the channel. And as always, y'all take care.